Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone.
Have you ever stood in a family photo and realized you're the one nobody's eyes are on? Not the golden child, not the baby everyone fusses over. Just there, present in every picture, present at every holiday, but somehow never the subject of the conversation. That's what it's like to be Generation X. We talk about baby boomers and their big, loud legacy. We study millennials like they're a case file. Burnout, side hustles, the whole story. And Gen Z? We treat them like a brand new species we're still trying to understand. But there's a generation sandwiched quietly in the middle, born roughly between 1965 and 1980, that almost never gets the microphone. They're the coworker who's been at the company 15 years and never once complained in a meeting. They're the parent who seems a little emotionally far away, even when they're standing right next to you. They're the ones who helped build the digital world we live in, and then never bothered posting about it. And here's what almost nobody says out loud. Their inner world might be the most misunderstood psychology of any living generation. Let's start with the empty house. Picture a child in Manila, or Manchester, or Minneapolis. Doesn't matter where. Coming home from school in 1979 to a front door that nobody opens for them. Both parents are at work. There's no phone in every pocket, no doorbell camera, no group chat checking in. Just a key on a shoelace around a small neck, a quiet house, and a kid who has to figure out dinner, homework, and the hours in between. Alone. Researchers have a name for what this generation became, the first mass generation of latchkey children. Studies from that era estimated that by the mid-1980s, several million school-age children were regularly unsupervised for hours every single day. That's not a handful of unlucky kids. That's an entire generational cohort quietly absorbing the same lesson at the same time. You cannot always count on someone being there. But here's the part that's easy to miss. That empty house didn't just build independence. It built something psychologists call a high-contingency environment, a world where actions and consequences were tightly, immediately linked, with no adult standing between the mistake and the outcome. Break something, and there's no one to explain it away to. Miss the school bus, and there's no ride waiting. The brain in that kind of environment learns to run the simulation forward, to think 2, 3 steps ahead. Because nobody else is going to catch the fall. That's not anxiety dressed up as maturity. That's a nervous system that learned early. Plan ahead, because no one else will. Now let's talk about the rules that kept changing. This generation watched their parents preach stability. Stay married, stay loyal to one employer, follow the rules, and you'll be fine. While divorce rates climbed through the 70s and 80s right in front of them. They watched hardworking adults give decades to a single company, only to be handed a pink slip the moment the balance sheet needed trimming. So when psychologists label this generation's outlook defensive pessimism, Gen X shrugs. They'd call it something simpler, being realistic. It's not cynicism, it's armor. They'll hope for something good to happen, but some part of them is already bracing for it not to, because that's what experience taught them, over and over. The ground can move even when everyone swore it was solid. This is also why you won't find them narrating their lives online. They grew up in an era when privacy wasn't a setting you had to configure. It was just the default. If you made a fool of yourself as a teenager, maybe 3 friends knew about it, and then it faded. No camera in every hand, no permanent record, no algorithm deciding to resurface it 5 years later. So the instinct to broadcast every meal, every milestone, every emotion to strangers online, it doesn't feel liberating to them. It feels like exposure. Not because they don't understand the technology. They built half of it. But because they learned early that the less people know about you, the safer you tend to be. And that's also where the humor comes from. That dry, deflecting, slightly ironic wit so many Gen Xers carry. It's a shield. Crack the joke before the moment gets too sincere. Keep things at arm's length. Laugh before it has the chance to sting. You can trace that instinct straight back to childhood, too. Growing up under the shadow of Cold War tension, where teachers calmly walked kids through drills for a nuclear strike as if it were a fire drill, all while insisting there was nothing to worry about. When the adults in your life hold two completely contradictory messages at once, this could be catastrophic, and don't be dramatic about it. You learn to hold contradiction yourself. You learn to keep one foot slightly out the door of every situation, just in case. And yet, here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. Out of all of that uncertainty, Gen X built one of the most quietly reliable work ethics of any generation alive. Not the kind you announce, the kind you just do. Think about a teenager delivering newspapers before sunrise in the cold, or working a cash register and doing the math in their head when the till jammed, or babysitting an entire street of neighborhood kids because someone had to and they were the only one available. These weren't resume-building internships. They were early, unglamorous introductions to a simple truth. If you don't do it, it doesn't get done. They watched their parents' generation get quietly dismantled by corporate downsizing, and it taught them something permanent. Never fully trust the company, but always be the most competent person in the room. You can't control whether the axe falls. You can control whether you're the last person anyone would think to cut. There's a paradox sitting right at the center of this generation's psychology, and it's a beautiful one. They are, at once, the most fiercely self-reliant generation alive, and one of the most quietly loyal. They will almost never ask for help. They've been solving problems alone since before they were old enough to reach the top kitchen shelf. But if you need help, they show up. No announcement, no social post about their generosity, just a truck in your driveway or a phone call at 2 a.m. without being asked twice. That comes from something tender, actually. Tight friendships built out of necessity, forged in all those hours without adult supervision, where friends became the safety net parents weren't always around to provide. And it shapes how they relate to authority, too. They don't respect a title. They respect competence. Earn your position through actual skill, and they'll follow you into anything. Show up with a fancy title and no substance, and you'll get exactly zero patience. That skepticism isn't rebellion for its own sake. It's the residue of watching incompetent leadership make devastating decisions throughout their entire childhood and young adulthood. Political scandals, economic collapses, public health crises handled badly and late. They learned early and often that a title is not the same thing as trustworthiness. They also got hit, more than once, by economic timing nobody warned them about. Some graduated straight into a market collapse. Others were hitting their stride in their careers right when the 2008 financial crisis pulled the floor out from under everyone. So it's no surprise they tend to build multiple income streams, multiple skills, multiple backup plans. Not because they're naturally entrepreneurial, but because they learned, in their bones, that nothing is guaranteed to last. Now, here's the part that deserves real tenderness, not judgment. This self-reliance can tip into something harder to carry. Research on adult development has found that people in this generation often report lower levels of seeking support during stressful periods. Not because they lack people who'd help them, but because asking can feel, deep down, like losing. If that's you, if your instinct in a crisis is to disappear into competence rather than reach for a hand, I want you to hear this gently. Needing people is not the same as failing them. You were taught, very young, that you had to be the one who holds it together. But you're allowed to put that down sometimes. You're allowed to be the one who gets held, too. And there's something almost poetic about how this generation learned to think. Before information lived in your pocket, knowledge had weight. Picture a teenager standing in a library, anywhere in the world, flipping through a card catalog drawer by hand, chasing down one single book that might hold the answer they needed for a report due the next morning. That effort wasn't wasted time. Psychologists call it deeper encoding. The idea that information you have to work for tends to root itself more permanently in memory than information that arrives with one tap. That same hands-on instinct shows up everywhere in this generation. A bicycle chain slips, and instead of reaching for a phone to call someone, they flip the bike over, get grease under their fingernails, and figure it out. That built something quiet but powerful. A belief that with enough patience and the right tool, you can understand almost anything in front of you. And now, Many of them are raising children in a completely different emotional climate. Constant supervision, constant documentation, a childhood recorded in real time and shared before it's even finished happening. Many Gen X parents made a conscious choice to give their kids the emotional attention and presence they themselves didn't always get. And that choice deserves real credit. It broke a pattern. But quietly, some of them worry they've overcorrected. That, and trying to protect their children from the loneliness they knew, they may have raised kids who find it harder to sit with discomfort alone. Because in the world Gen X grew up in, being visible could mean being vulnerable. And vulnerability, back then, wasn't something you were taught to name. It was something you learned to survive quietly, on your own. Here's the truth I want to leave you with. This might be the last generation that fully remembers what it feels like to be bored. To sit with your own thoughts with nothing to scroll through. To solve a problem without a search bar to lean on. That's not nostalgia. It's a genuinely rare kind of psychological muscle, and it deserves to be named and honored, not overlooked. They are not better than any other generation. They are not worse. They are simply the bridge, standing between a world that was ending and one that hadn't fully arrived yet. And bridges rarely get admired while they're being crossed. They just hold the weight, quietly, so everyone else can get where they're going. Maybe that's the most defining trait of all, carrying so much and never needing anyone to notice. If any part of this describes someone you love, a parent, an older coworker, maybe even yourself, I want you to sit with this for a second. The quiet ones are often carrying the most. Recognizing that isn't small. It's a form of love. If this reached you, tell me in the comments which part hit closest to home. I read every single one, and I promise you're not just talking into the void. And if you want more honest, research-grounded conversations like this one, the kind that help you understand yourself and the people around you a little more gently, subscribe and consider joining as a channel member. It genuinely helps this work reach the people who need to hear it. I am reclaiming my peace.